Okay, hello and welcome, and thank you for coming, everyone who has come. I am Godless Granny, and I wanted to have a discussion with regards to what's going on in the country and in the world with the Black Lives Matter movement. I'm going to start by having each of my panel guests introduce themselves. And after they do that, I put together a short video that I'm going to put up. And after that video, then we'll have some discussion, and we'll see if we can't get some people from the chat also to put up questions and comments as well. So let's start with Badger. Can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I am Badtempered Badger. I talk about stuff on the internet. You can find my channel on, I forgot the name. You can find my channel on YouTube, Badtempered Badger, and on Twitter at Badtemper Badger without the D, because Twitter has character limits. Okay,
Julie, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Julie LaVoice. I think my Twitter handle is at J LaVoice, or that's it. And my channel is Wine and Reason. I do a couple stream with my spouse, Junk Shop Library, on Thursdays when we can get our computer to work. And that's about it. I'm a wee bit of an activist. So.
Okay, and Grumpy Old Dude, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hello, I am the Grumpy Old Dude. I am a former white supremacist who now has a YouTube channel focused mainly on fighting against hate groups and the groups that I used to belong to, and just trying to be a better person every day.
Okay, very good. All right, I'm going to try to do a screen share and show that video that I was talking about. And
we need a...
Yeah, that's not going to work. Okay.
There it is.
Do you have it?
Stop, guys, stop! Black Lives Matter in Sacramento shared this video this morning. They say it shows a Rancho Cordova police officer using excessive force on a 14-year-old. A controversial body cam video just released tonight. Police officers pulling over a driver suspected of leaving the scene of an accident, ordering her out of the car, trying to handcuff her. A bystander's video showing two officers that scuffling with her off the ground. One of them raising his baton, you can see him hitting her.
Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. Justify it in the end. What many trumpets going? Come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after. One tin soldier rides away. So the people of the valley sent a message up the hill, asking for the very treasure, tens of gold for which they'd kill. Came an answer from the kingdom, with our brothers we will share all the secrets of our mountains, all the riches buried there. Now the valley thrive with anger. Mount your horses, draw your sword, and they killed the mountain people. They won their just reward. Now they stood beside the treasure on the mountain, dark and red. was justified. The song was all it said. Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end. Rock me and the trumpets blowing. Come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after. One soldier rides away. Go ahead and hate your neighbor. Go ahead and cheat a friend. Do it in the name of heaven. You can justify it in the end. Rock and the trumpets blowing. Come the judgment day. On the bloody morning after. One tin soldier rides away.
Ah, shoot.
You should feel lucky for that.
In Frazier's video, we can see Floyd pinned face down by the knee of the officer, later confirmed by the department was shouting. At 8:22.
Okay. All right. Yeah, as you see, I'm not really good at trying to put up video, and I couldn't get that to. I tried the URL, and that started the whole thing over again, so that didn't help a whole lot.
No, that's fine. You took me right back to my childhood with that song, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I used to sing it on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
And I was about to cry, and then you showed Trump's face, and then I got enraged. So I'm good to go. We can do this.
Yeah. And, Hissy makes a very good point. We do have an all-white panel here, and that is not what I wanted. I did ask one Black person to join the panel, but I was an asshole. I did not ask well. I am socially awkward. In real life, I have all of one friend. I don't talk to people a lot, and so I did not come across well when I tried to ask, and so of course she said no, and I don't want to say, hey, you're a Black person, will you be our token? That isn't the way to do it. And so I ended up with an all-white panel just because I don't have that I know, and I didn't know how to approach it. Well, yeah, I really don't know anybody when it comes right down to it.
Well, I can address that a little bit. And I mean, I agree. It'd be awesome if we had some people of color on this panel. That would be awesome.
Yes. Yes.
But in our country, white people are the majority, and we have to talk about this because it's when it comes to racism against Black people, it's white people doing that. So we have to go, hey,
it's us.
What are we doing?
We need to change.
Yeah.
They do not need to change. Right.
Yep.
Yes.
So so that's in that sense of it, I think it's fair. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've got stats. I have numbers. Would you like numbers?
I want to clarify something real quick for Hissy. I should have said I've been asking in my DMs on Twitter for a week. I didn't actually tweet anything. I probably should have done that. It might have gotten more attention. I don't know. But we were trying to get people of color on here. I know it's last minute, but if anybody knows somebody who's willing, give them a shout out. Let them know that we're doing it.
Exactly. Mama Atheist is also going to be joining us in a bit. She had some things that she had to do first, but when she gets here, she will also be joining. One of the reasons that I had the idea of doing this show was because Badger has been posting some video on Twitter of things happening right here in the United States that I did not see until I looked at Badger's Twitter. They are things we are not seeing in the media. And as bad as what we have been seeing in the media is, some of it is worse. And so I wanted Badger to come and show some of the things that he's got that's even worse than what we've been seeing.
Yeah, the clips that I've found, I've been following just a lot of people who've just been in and around the areas at the time. I don't claim any special people who've been releasing video. A lot of it is pretty shocking stuff. I've tried to collect the I can't even speak now. I've tried to collect the things that I've got some video, is what I'm saying. A lot of it is police going outside what police should be doing in the events of a riot, going over and above their authority and being unnecessarily. There's also instances of I can see no other way of describing it than doing the old tactic of trying to incriminate people, particularly people of color, with untruth. There's one instance that I think I have the video clip of in the middle of arresting someone. All the police have. Let me see if I can find that one. All the police have these wooden sticks.
Okay. And while Badger is getting that up, Grumpy, why don't you tell us a little bit about some of your... How did you end up in a white supremacist group, and how were you able to get out?
So when I was 19 years old, I was arrested and convicted for involuntary homicide after defending myself against someone who was holding a knife. While I was in prison, I, announced it loud and proud that I was an atheist, and I was approached by members of a group known as World Church of the Creator. They are an anomaly within the atheist community because they are a religion, but they do not believe in any god or gods. And they are a white supremacist group. They believe that their race, the white race, is their religion, and everything they do is for the benefit of the white race. And I did that for almost 20 years. I eventually got out of that and stepped away from the white racist movement due to educating myself, learning more about evolution, genetics, history, just knowledge. And I always tell people that old adage that knowledge is power, and it can give you the power to make yourself a better person.
Okay. Was it difficult to get out of that?
It wasn't very difficult for me to get out of it because, like I said, I educated myself and just decided this is wrong and it has no foundation. So, I walked away from it, but I've had quite a few threats, I don't really take them all that seriously because they know where I'm at. It's not hard to find me. And if they wanted to do something, they would have done it by now.
Okay, interesting. The reason I asked that question is I've read Rising of Hatred, and Black is the author. I can't remember his first name. I think but he's the son or grandson of one of the former high wizards of a white supremacist movement. And he had a great difficulty in getting out. But a big part of that was because of family ties and having to swear off family. And he talked about, that when you try to get out, they try to pull you back in.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. For years, people have, tried to throw information. It's really disinformation, but they try and throw information at you like, hey, listen, have you seen this? Have you heard about this? I can't believe you stepped out of this. You're a strong white man. We need you back. And, then, like I said, then on the other side of that token, you have the ones that want to threaten your life and call you a race traitor and a slag and whatever other names. But for a lot of people that grew up in those groups, it can be harder.
Okay. The internet went down for a few moments there, and I lost everybody, and so I'm assuming the stream got lost too.
Oh man, it was really good. He just said something super profound.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
By the way, I'm sorry I'm late, but thank you for having me.
Hey,
I think we're still up, Granny.
Stream is still going.
Okay,
Yeah,
very
still
good.
good.
Okay.
Streaming keeps everything going on their own end.
Okay.
I don't see it on mine, but it could be my internet.
Okay. It could, it must be just what I was seeing because I lost everybody.
It says we cut out for 1 minute, but they seem to, Sorry if you guys can hear us. Hi, everybody.
Mama.
There's a bad storm rolling through where I'm at. So if you're seeing my lights flickering, it's cool. I'm on my phone. So you won't lose me if the lights go out. It just might be really dark in here.
Okay. Okay. All right. Mama, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Mama Atheist Amanda. I climate scientist. I have a channel and I talk about stuff. I'm not a good shiller, but I'm Amanda.
Okay.
Hi.
I haven't had you on my show before, so this is the first time.
I know.
But
you're mom to me.
That's right. So. That's right. I'm Granny, your mom. So you're my daughter.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Badger,
thank you for letting me join. Lisa, I'm sorry I'm late. I had a few things to do in between, but I have stuff to say, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Badger, do you have your stuff up?
Yeah, I've got several clips here that I think are important to see related to this issue. The first one is what I have seen described as a police officer attempting to falsely incriminate someone by sneaking a weapon into their house.
I have something to say on that real quick. That there's a video out, I don't know if you've seen it, of a cop that pins a black man to the ground and puts a weapon in his hand. It's not a gun, it's a baton, some kind of stick or something. But it's fucked up. So
the police.
That's the one.
That's what y'all get. That's what y'all. Ooh, don't get that. Get that. Don't hit him with that fucking stick.
There it is.
Yo.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness! Get your fucking. Oh my god! Get your. No! Please stop!
They know they're being taped. Everybody has a fucking video or a phone.
Which begs an important. No, you're right, Mama, because that begs an important question, and it's that with the body cams, with everybody having phones that are as good as, nearly as good as video cameras, it's like it really. I heard this wasn't my. I've been thinking it too, but I heard someone say this yesterday, was that we may never have real numbers on this stuff, because how many people have been hurt or falsely, incriminated or beaten to death or what that before we had that technology, and because if they're brazen enough
to do it, to the body cams really quick, because they have the capability of turning them off, and it has to do with when they're speaking to people like who have been sexually assaulted and stuff, to give them privacy. But I don't think that they should be able to turn it off. I think that they should ask for permission and it should be turned off from the station. Them having the ability to turn it off is not okay, because they can do that at any time and just say, you know, oh, something happened or I needed to for whatever reason. That needs to be fixed.
Agreed.
Sarah from Hyde is right. You know, and I would go a step further. It's not just that they think they can get away with it; they know they can get away with it. Yeah, because whenever it happens, even though we have videotape of it, they still get away with it.
No.
Yeah, and I can tell you right now, not only from my own personal experience, but from watching others be arrested in this same manner. That is a tactic that is so old, it's unbelievable. If they think they can, you know, force a baton or any other kind of weapon into your hand, that way they now have justification to use more violence against you. They will. I've seen it done. I've seen it inside, you know, I've seen it in the public, and I've seen it inside of prisons. This is something they teach each other, you know, behind the scenes.
But this is exactly why we are protesting. This is exactly why it's happening, because we're sick to fucking death of them getting away with it. How many times have they murdered somebody, and the worst that has happened is they've been suspended or maybe lost their badge?
Yep.
That's it. And admittedly, sometimes they do end up getting arrested or whatever, but most of the time in this country, they get away with it and they know they can. And like I talked about this morning on Dave's stream, a lot of the police officers are putting fucking tape over their names and numbers on their badges.
Yep. Which is illegal.
Yeah.
Which is illegal. That you cannot do that. No. I know for a fact, I've already looked it up. Where I live in the state of Pennsylvania, if you cover your name and your badge number, you will no longer be a police officer. That is the law. You have to identify who you are.
No, it's and the fact that right now our president is technically on their side. Yeah, the thing here is that, yes, there is some looting going on. Granny, I didn't ask if it's okay to swear. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We had this discussion before you came on that I am perfectly fine with people swearing. I usually don't do it myself, but it doesn't bother me when other people do it.
Well,
I already fucking asked. You're good.
Mouthy, so, but yeah, like I said, yes, there is looting going on and a little bit of rioting, but 90%, maybe 95 to 98% of the people out there are peacefully protesting. They're not, you know, there are assholes that are taking advantage of the situation and are, you know, breaking glass and burning shit. Fine. But that's not most of them. But the thing is that, and there's Fox News that's on in my house all the time because I take care of my parents and they watch it. And if you listen, yeah, it's fucking awful.
Oh, bless their heart.
They are saying that all of us on this side are anarchists and Antifa, and we're fucking terrorists because they're lumping us all in with this, and they're pushing this rhetoric that is, it's constant.
No, okay, I'm sorry. It's just
we are terrorists.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That was just a light bulb moment. I'm sorry, just really quickly. Somebody on Facebook called me a terrorist after I posted a link to a letter to my white friends, which if you haven't read that, check it out. It's really good. And I was like, I'm a what now? What? Then I kind of ignored it. But anyway, go ahead.
No, and but it's
can I say something real quick, Amanda?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm rambling. Go ahead.
I agree with their principles. I do not agree with a lot of people that follow that movement. It is not a group. They do not have a leader or anything like that. But there are a lot of people who walk around claiming to be Antifa and want to punch people in the face and stir up all kinds of violence and stuff. That is not helping. That makes you part of the problem.
They are calling us all Antifa right now, and we're not.
I know, and we're not.
Jeff, can you talk? I can't hear you.
No, I can talk. I was just waiting for an opportunity to get in here. First of all, thanks you, Granny, for letting me in. Antifa's my knowledge of Antifa is limited, but from what I understand of them, they're of the anarchist persuasion. Which
a lot of them.
Yeah, a lot of them are, and I come from Britain, where I think a lot of Antifa's tactics have origins in the British historically in the sort of British anti-fascist movement that back in the 1970s there was a political party that got fairly big and to the point of being dangerous, called the National Front, who were openly neo-Nazis, and they would at a certain point they got to the point where they recruited people out of, like, say, English football hooligan firms to attack, like, left-wing meetings and so on. So as a kind of response to that, some of the left-wing groups, including one that I'm very familiar with called the Socialist Workers' Party, developed a technique called squadding, which was to have kind of groups that were basically kind of groups that would take the National Front on physically in the street. And I would say at the time it was arguable that there was a need for it. And because it was that bad, that it was that bad in terms of, like, the physical attacks or whatever, that you needed some sort of a counter to that. However, I think along the way, something kind of went wrong with this, and I will say even the main group that was responsible for starting this, the Socialist Workers' Party, now does not view squadding, like, as which is kind of what Antifa does, as a very good tactic against fascist demos. And we had a big there was a big thing in the 1970s in a place called Lewisham, which is in London area, and it's actually known. You can Google this, called the Battle of Lewisham, and where there was literally it turned into a big fight between the national. This is a big demonstration by the National Front, who literally come into this area where there were a lot of there was a minority community there, and the main kind of united front group against this, called the Anti-Nazi League, which was a massive this was a massive part of actually beating back the kind of, like, re-emergence of British fascism. I mean, and I would say the Anti-Nazi League played a massive part in this. I mean, that they did beat back the British fascist movement. A certain element of that was from counter-demonstrating them. However, I think one of the problems that came from the whole squatting thing was that you had this kind of group, and I think that I would say more from the anarchist political tradition, that got into this thing of, like, kind of small but militant groups that would take them on physically. And I think a better lesson that was learned was, yes, by all means counter-demonstrate them, but do a more broad kind of thing where you can bring mass numbers onto the street to the kind of point that actually violence doesn't need to be a thing. Now, I'll give an example of this going back, and I'm actually gutted that I missed this demonstration because I was actually ill at the time and I couldn't go. Right after the referendum in the UK, I mean, a lot of the racists in the UK felt very, very empowered by the Brexit result. And the Brexit thing, that could be a whole nother stream, and I won't get into all the politics of that. But I will say a lot of the racists suddenly felt empowered by that result. There was a group and literally, and I'm going to say this to him out loud, literally a group of neo-Nazis, I do not mind labeling that, who decided to call a demonstration in the city that I live in. As a response to that, a group called Stand Up to Racism called a counter to that. And because Stand Up to Racism took a broad thing where it was like, we're not just looking for hey, we'll welcome the militants in if they want to join but be peaceful. But this is a broad message that you can be Marxist, anarchist, socialist, liberal, conservative, whatever, but you oppose racism. Here's what happened.
Okay, Jeff.
Here's what I've got to say. I'll finish this very quickly.
Okay.
Here's what happened. Almost 2,000 people came onto the streets in Southampton against this demonstration. What do you want? How many these neo-Nazis turned up? 12. Didn't even need to be violence.
No.
So anyway, that's my story done. So
Okay.
I just want to give them.
Okay, I'd like to address, what's going on with Hissy. And Hissy, I'm sorry that you feel like you have been slighted, and I'm sorry that you feel that you should have been invited to this panel. I did not know that you were Black. I have watched one or two of your videos, and I did not know your race. And so
Indian.
Sorry.
Indian. Okay, sorry. See, I didn't know.
Granny, I'm going to say, if Hissy, because as you know, I collaborate with Hissy on some videos. If Hissy really, really wants to come in on the stream, I'm willing to drop out and let her come in if she really wants to.
I have no problem with inviting Hissy if Hissy wants to contribute to the discussion. But if Hissy's only intent is to attack the panel, then no, I don't need someone to come and tell us why we're a bad panel.
I'm willing to exchange a couple of DMs with Hissy first or whatever, and okay, but if she really wants to come in, but yeah, don't attack the panel, Hissy. I don't think I'm like to think she wouldn't, but
all right, I have to refresh, so if I disappear, I'm refreshing this.
Okay.
I am willing to, if Hissy really has got something to say, I'm willing to drop out and let her come in.
Okay. Hissy, would you like to join the panel? And we'll give her some time to decide. She may be gone already. Okay.
And she's popping back and forth.
But, yeah. But the point is here.
You can always rotate us in or whatever.
Right.
On the,
right.
You drop me and bring her in or whatever, and maybe bring me back in later.
No, I said I'd pop out if she comes in because you guys work together anyway. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, Ed.
There he is. I look better now.
Yeah. In answer to Seraphim, we can reach her on Twitter and we can ask her there. Because she has been so aggressive toward the panel, I would prefer not to. If she if she had said in the chat that she wants to join and she's willing to discuss this, without, just attacking the panel, I would ask her. But if she's just going to walk away and expect us to invite her after she's just been attacking us, no, I don't think that's.
I'll send her a DM. But I think possibly she may need to calm down a little bit.
Yeah.
On this, but I mean, so people may know I collaborate with Hissy on a weekly basis, and I mean, we got to be clear that this is the whole thing we're discussing here is a very emotional issue for a lot of people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think maybe sometimes we need to take a little bit of stock of the whole situation.
Everybody's words are valid.
Yeah,
but we have to be able to talk to each other in a respectful manner, you know.
I'll send Hissy a DM or whatever, and if she's willing to calm down and like whatever, and I'm more than happy because I do believe she could have input. She could have some good contributions to make, and that's why I'd be willing to drop out for her because. You know,
no, I said I will drop out for her.
Yeah. All right. Well, let me say this. As far as telling me I can't relate to this, I think out of anybody on this panel, I can relate to this more than most people. And I get it. If you're a person of color, then yeah, you probably do have more valid points than I do. But I was an active skinhead white supremacist for 20 years. I've seen both sides of this argument up close and personal. So I do have an opinion about it, and I do have some ideas on how to make it better. And if you can't accept that, it's your problem. You need to look deeper into yourself and figure it out.
I'd like to address this comment by Godless Sewing that tone policing is exactly how to suppress opinions. I don't agree with that. There are times when the tone overrides the opinion, and I think one can express an opinion in a calm and rational manner. And yes, there are emotions behind this, and yes, you need to let people know that you're angry, and you let people know that you know and I realize that there is a time and a place for having a tone, but I don't agree that asking someone to tone down the rhetoric is the same as suppressing their opinion.
And no, Hissy, not everyone listens to me because I'm white. People listen to me because I'm trying to spread knowledge. I'm trying to educate people and make a difference. And not everyone listens to me. I already have my first troll. I don't even have 150 subs on my channel, but I have white supremacists coming to my channel telling me how I'm wrong, knowing that I'm right. I understand that you're upset, but attacking me for trying to speak out against racism just makes things worse.
Now, I don't agree with you there, Ed.
I would just say, Hissy, I love you to bits. You know that. And I collaborate with you on a weekly basis. I love you to bits. But I don't know, maybe take a cigarette, take 5 or whatever on this. I
think she's been timed out anyway.
Yeah, then DM me again, because I do believe yeah, I don't want to get into like too much of Hissy's ethnic background, but she is, at least, you know, she does have like a black background, even though she may not look it. Sorry, I don't even know if I'm phrasing that right, but I'm just trying to.
Okay.
I do think she's got some. I know she's got valid stuff to say on it, but
she does.
Hissy, you know, I love you to bits, Hissy. You know, I love.
Can we maybe I'm not trying to be mean here, but we're making this about this, and can we maybe get back to the topic, Ed?
Yeah, I think we should. I think we should.
Ed, check your DMs real quick, but let's not focus on, you know, like I said, everybody's voice is valid and everything, but that's not what this stream is about.
Right.
And I do want to go back to what I said at the very beginning, and that, you know, don't think that because you're white you can't talk about this. In fact, we need to talk about it, because again, when racist acts are perpetrated against people of color, it's usually people that look like me doing it. So we absolutely need to talk about it, and we need to fix our culture. We need to stop this.
And that's
And
exactly why I wanted to have this stream, is because even
Yeah.
if it is an all-white panel, we need to talk about what can we do to support change.
Now,
Yeah.
can I, my son yesterday actually went to a protest in town, and this is, you know, I already told Julie yesterday it was a peaceful protest. The cops even joined in, so you know it wasn't anything dangerous. I made sure beforehand. I would have gone, still healing. I just couldn't walk around with that. But you know, I made sure raising him that he didn't see. You know, he saw everybody as everybody, as people, and I kept him as far away from this kind of rhetoric as possible. And when stuff like this would come up, when you know young Black men would get shot and murdered by the police, we would sit and have discussions about that. And I think that is something that is really important, especially for people like us that are, you know, that are white, that we need to have these discussions with our children, that we do have a voice, yes, but we need to be on the side of right and understand that if people are just people, and it doesn't matter. And I think living in the South, unfortunately, I see so much hate and racism and the Confederate flag everywhere. And we're not from here. We've only lived here a few years. So that was something when we moved here, he immediately was like, this is totally fucked, Mom. What is going on with this?
Oh yeah,
You know?
when we moved from Kentucky to Tennessee, and my first day of high school, I'm walking around a brand new school. I'm a freshman, so I'm a ball of insecurity anyway. And just as I'm walking by, I hear this white kid say, "I can't believe how many N-words are in this place." And he didn't say N-word. And I came home and I was like, "Where have you moved us to exactly? Because I don't know if I can handle this." And it yeah, so it's not just to piggyback on what Amanda said.
Yeah, I also live in the Deep South, and I've lived here for 6 years. There is a Confederate museum about 3 hours from here. There is a town about a half an hour from where I live. It's called Coleman, Alabama, and it is known as one of the most racist cities in the country. There are people who pass out racist literature to children on Halloween.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Do you know what Stone Mountain is? I've talked.
Yes, I've been there.
Oh, yeah, I've been there.
I was
That's
taken
a
there
half
by
an hour up the
family.
road from me. And for everybody in the stream that doesn't know what it is, in the town is actually now named after the monument. Stone Mountain, Georgia. Stone Mountain, the monument, is the fucking Mount Rushmore of Confederate officers.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It is a huge, you know, they're blasted into the side of this rock and or this mountain, and it is always packed. People love it. People are always there. You have to pay. It's not a national monument, but it's a state monument of the same level. You have to pay to go in and see, and it is a big deal. And it's a big deal. It is packed every day, people go and they bring their children and they say, "These are great men." No, they're not. These are fucking traitors that fought for the right to keep people as slaves.
To own people like cattle. Yeah, it was. And I got to tell you, I didn't realize it because I was like 8, I think, when and I'm trying not to vilify anyone who's still alive right now, but let's just say just some of my family from Georgia decided that I needed to see this. Now, I'm one of 4 kids, so getting a special trip with like one parent and one grandparent, that's a big deal when you're little and you don't get a lot of, you know, alone time with your parents. So I was just happy as a clam the entire time. And they were telling me about all of this history, and they were like, "This is your heritage. You need to know about this." And I didn't have the context to understand until later. And then I was horrified. I was like, what were you doing? What, why, you know? And, so no, what Amanda says, it's like a damn pilgrimage down here to go to Stone Mountain.
In a way, with
if
the
you're
kids
white
that live here, it's a form of indoctrination. because
Yeah.
as soon as they're old enough, they're brought there, and they're told, and it really is a big deal. For some reason, the people that have family that fought for the Confederacy, they're very proud of it. There are many organizations that have to do with honoring these people that fought in the war and having the statues and monuments everywhere. And then they don't even call it the Civil War. A lot of them call it I don't even remember, but they don't. They
War of
They call it the War of
Aggression.
Northern Aggression.
Yes,
And by the way, if hands up if you know the name of an ancestor who fought in that war, because I fucking do. Not going to say it, but I know it.
I'm not even.
I know you were probably on the other side. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and and they also will fight you about the reason for the war. And you could take every single state that wanted to secede has a note of succession that specifically states we're doing this in order to keep our heritage of owning people. It's all worded differently for everyone, but every single one says it. It absolutely was. So having that, because they know damn well that they're fucking wrong, but they grow up in this shit and they're told. I'm sorry if I'm yelling. They're very young to be proud of their heritage, to be proud of the families that fought here. And it's a form of indoctrination that keeps going for generation and generation that ends with racism because they still feel that this is one side versus the other.
And there are a lot of mixed messages as well. I don't want to paint my family with too broad of a brush, but I do want to say that everything Amanda said, I was absolutely taught growing up. However, my parents were also for desegregation of schools. They were, my dad and I did Hands Across America. I mean, like it's weird. It's a lot of stuff like that have it's this weird revisionist history. I think that some Southerners have in their brains where they're like, Reconstruction beat us down, so therefore we have to act like all of this matters and was somehow a noble lost cause when it fucking wasn't. There was nothing noble about it. It was, we want to buy and sell people like cattle. That's what it was.
Here's one of the biggest contradictions with all that. They want to claim to be proud Americans, yet they still fly an enemy flag.
Yep.
You can't be both. You're one or the other. You are either rebelling against this country or you are an American who is going to try and make things better for all of America. It's that simple.
Exactly. And this is the problem that I have with what President Trump did on Monday. And watching what happened even as a result of that ridiculous stunt. Just to bring it down to a very small level. There's someone I know on Twitter. He's a Christian troll. He's been trolling me for a while. And up until that day, his stuff has always been, just piddly squat. But all of a sudden, after that, he started posting all this stuff about when the Christians take over. When the Christians take over, are we going to outlaw the teaching of evolution? When the Christians take, and nobody was responding, and he got more and more and more bold until he started posting threats against LGBTQ people. And then I reported him.
Thank you.
Yeah. But, that's exactly it. When people say things like what the president did on Monday, it makes these racists bolder. It gives it makes them feel like, okay, we can say and do whatever we want.
He's been giving them a platform since the day he got elected. And I've said this on other streams, and I've said it in a couple of my videos. In the past 12 months, there have been now it's up to 117 new hate groups, not offshoots from other groups, but new hate groups.
Mm-hmm.
It's horrendous.
Well, it's follow the leader. I mean, when your leader sets such a terrible example and calls good people on both sides and things like that. It's like, no,
Right.
no, sir, you cannot. And I'm going to take back that sir because he doesn't deserve it. But yeah, it's just, my accent might be getting thicker as we go along because I'm angry now. I'm very angry. But that's exactly what he's done. He has emboldened racists because he's out there showing his ass all the time. So they're like, well, president's on my side. Why can't I do it? And it's like, no, you can't, because 1,000 people annually in this country are killed by police, murdered by police, and a black person is 3 times more likely than a white person to be in those numbers.
Let me say this. I've already looked this up. You're close. It's 2.7% times more likely than being killed by a white person. Now,
thank you.
People want to argue there are more white people killed by police than black people. Yes,
but there's more of it.
Technically is true, but that's because there are more white people in this country.
Exactly.
The percentage rates are technically more for people of color because they get killed at a higher rate than white people. So you can't use that argument that more white people get killed by police. Technically, that is true. But if you look at the percentage rates, it is a higher percentage of the black population and Hispanic population than it is the white population.
Yes, which was my point. If that didn't come across, I apologize, because that was, thank you for the clarification.
And I'll say this. People would have attacked you because you said 3% and not 2.7%. That is a common racist tactic. All the white supremacy groups, focus on that. Oh, look how far off she is, blah, blah, blah. And it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous argument.
Yeah, that is. Agreed. And I mean, if you look at our incarceration rates too, and look at the populations, and it's absolutely ridiculous.
Now let's focus on that for a second, because that brings up, Godless Granny's question to me earlier. As far as the incarceration rates, there are so many more people of color incarcerated than white people, and
by far
that played a part in me becoming a white supremacist, because I had, racial tension from the other side, from, Nation of Islam members and 5 percenters and things like that. And that kind of pushed me more towards becoming a white supremacist while I was in prison. Mm-hmm. So now I'm not saying that I was valid for doing that. Not by any means, was that a good idea? But if we didn't lock up so many people of color and make them turn to these groups, things might actually get better in this country.
Yeah, absolutely.
The racial profiling that goes on in this country is really awful too. Yeah. One of the things I was watching yesterday on Twitter was a thread of Black people talking about their experiences with racial profiling. And it's horrendous. Yeah. The police would never do those things to white people.
I will say this. It's very rare that the police do that with white people, but they do. It depends on where you're from and who you are. Because I come from a well-known family in South Jersey. Anybody in my family caught in the wrong part of town, they were pulling you over, and you might catch a beating depending on who the cop was. But that does not compare to how the police in this country treat people of color.
No. Yeah. And what I find so disturbing is the notion. This is a fact. Black parents in this country, and I imagine Hispanic parents as well, have to sit down with their children very early on and have conversations about how you deal with the police. Yeah. Be polite, don't be aggressive, say yes ma'am, no sir, and the thing is, unfortunately, as we've seen, that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. I mean, George
You know
Floyd
what?
wasn't resisting arrest. He wasn't saying anything that, bad, and they killed him.
Do everything right. They're still wrong. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You can do everything quote unquote right. And the thing is, it's like, I can be, talking about privilege, I've never been this way because I think it has to do with how I was raised and stuff. But I could be a little pissy with a cop and get away with it if I wanted to. I mean, I'm a white woman in the South. I could be like, all right, fine, instead of thank you, sir. I could do that if I wanted to, but it and not be hurt by that. Now, if a black friend of mine would never try to do that down here. Like, just and that's wrong. That's fucked up.
Badger, I know that these protests have spilled over into the UK, and that there are protests even in the UK over this incident here in America. What are feelings like over there?
Well, there's, to a lesser extent in some areas and a greater extent in others, similar issues in the UK.
Okay.
Here, we have issues we have a lot of issues with immigration-related topics, where anyone who is from a different country or cultural background is looked upon with suspicion by a lot of people. And an experience with it, it's difficult to. It's very difficult to find a dividing line between where the downtrodden people I don't know how to phrase what I'm trying to say. It's difficult to find a dividing line between where people are downtrodden due to racism and where they're downtrodden due to classism and just being poor. But people, the thing is, there isn't a dividing line clearly. Which at the bottom end of it is all the people of color coming from other countries who get shat on by everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the issue is people who find themselves in a disadvantaged position find the only people that they can look down upon are people in a more disadvantaged position than them, and it just breeds this tribalism.
Yeah. Is police violence as big an issue in the UK as it is here in America?
That's a little bit difficult to say. I would, generally speaking, say no.
Okay.
Purely, well, not purely, but partly because the police in this country, most of them are not, they're not armed with firearms.
Mm-hmm.
And while I find myself in a bit of a contentious spot on that particular issue, that does mean that training for dealing with violent suspects has to be much greater, because it can.
Did he put out?
Yeah.
Maybe. I lost him too.
I lost
Yeah,
him.
I lost him.
He's back.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Training of police in this country has to be better in some areas, because most of the police officers aren't armed in the same way as American police officers. This is not all militarized. So de-escalation tactics are much more prevalent in police activities, even though, same as in America, police officers, some are bullies. Some are bullies and violent individuals who've just got into it because they want to wield power over others.
This was actually something I was talking. I'm people don't know I'm Dutch. My father's from Holland, and I wrote a paper a while back about the prisons here mostly, but I spoke on the prisons in Holland, and they've actually had to close down like half of them because their recidivism rates are incredibly low. Because when people go to prison there, they're treated like human beings, and they're taught, they're given education and taught how to deal with things. And it's just, they really have had to close down more than half of their prisons there. But in terms of the police, first of all, they don't they don't carry weapons. I'm not sure if they have batons, but I know they don't have guns. And they have steps that they go through to deal with anybody. And violence it doesn't come up in any of them. They have certain ways of dealing with the situation. And, obviously they don't have the guns to be able to shoot them. And, it's about talking down and treating people like human beings instead of just resorting to violence right away. And so they don't have shit like this. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm assuming because like Badger said, you guys, the cops don't carry guns. Like you said that, right, Badger?
Yeah,
I did say that. Yes.
Yeah, regular cops don't.
They're better trained.
Part of the issue is also training, because in the UK, I've been chatting with someone on Twitter who's a former police officer. The training focuses heavily on verbal de-escalation rather than immediately resolution.
Mm-hmm.
That does sometimes result in the issue that when you're talking to a police officer in the UK, it can come across as slippery, because they're trying to de-escalate the situation by being what's the word I'm looking for? By being less confrontational, so that they may not say directly what the problem is because they're trying to calm everyone down. For some, that's just because they're trying to calm everyone down. Occasionally, it's because they're trying to incriminate people for things that they do. Trying to sort of gather evidence they may have done. There's still an element of that here as well. But in general, I'd say that training is a bit better in terms of verbal de-escalation.
That's good. Well, and another issue that we have here that y'all don't have over there anymore is that, a police officer dealing with any American does not necessarily know right away if they're armed to the teeth or not. Because I've got members of my family who were Army sharpshooters, and they carry everywhere. Every time they leave the house, they have a weapon on them, a gun, and that's fine. They keep trying to get me to get certified. I'm like, guys, the first time I ever shot a gun, I had a panic attack, and that was at a range. It was perfectly safe, but I had to set it down and then learn how to breathe again. No, not my thing.
Can I, I know that people in America are very proud of their Second Amendment. And I'm going to say something that might be controversial, but I'm sorry, it's the way I feel. When the Second Amendment was adopted, it took 30 seconds to load one bullet into a gun, and those guns were not exactly accurate. Now, and plus we were also, again, fighting against tyranny and the fact that there was a lot of reasons why the Second Amendment came into play. Now, I'm not saying get rid of it. I don't like guns. I would love it. But like most liberals, we are not trying to get rid of you or take your guns or whatever bullshit that they keep trying to push. This is another thing that Fox News does a lot, that we're trying to take everybody's guns away. No, but the thing with the Constitution in America is it was set up to be looked at and dealt with and not rewritten but amended it was either 10 or every 20 years, and we haven't done that in almost a century. Okay, and the Second Amendment is one of the things that needs to get worked on, because like I said, this is not 1786. This is people.
We have murder drones now. Yeah, the whole part about being armed to stand against tyranny, including our own government. If that happens, that time has passed, because the government has murder drones. We're not I don't know what y'all think you're going to do with your guns against that. I don't know. Ask someone in Afghanistan how that works.
And listen, I will say this, and people can tell me it's just my opinion or whatever. I don't care. The only ones that are really pushing hard for keeping their guns are people in militias and other hate groups that want to try and start a war. Mm-hmm. I mean, anybody that is trying to make a difference and make things better and make this a united country for real doesn't care about, owning a shitload of firearms. You don't need that.
Well, in addition to that, the Second Amendment was actually never intended to guarantee people a personal firearm. It was intended to guarantee the state the right to have their own militia.
Yes.
It was never, it was supposed to be a personal guarantee that everyone can have a firearm.
Yeah, in fact, the wording is in order to maintain a well-ordered militia. That's the wording, right?
Yes.
It was before we had an army. It was before we had a Navy or an Air Force.
Or a National Guard, which is supposed to be our militias, not these private groups of rednecks and hillbillies walking around with fully automatic firearms for no other reason than because they can.
Yeah. Which were designed as city siege weapons, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Go ahead, man.
So I'm from Connecticut, okay? And I'm pretty sure we don't have concealed carry there. I honestly don't know the gun laws there, but I think most of it has to do with just the politics. And Connecticut is one of the bluest states in the country. And living there, growing up there, I never saw a gun, not once. I think one time I had a friend whose father had a gun cabinet. I think that was the only, and it was locked up and everything, but that was the only time I ever saw a gun growing up. Even getting older, but I lived there after college for a while, never saw anybody carry a weapon. I come here into Georgia and people are walking into Burger King with one on their hip and one strapped onto each ankle.
Yeah.
And I don't fucking get that.
Yeah,
and that is so dangerous to begin with, because you're presenting yourself as if you're ready to attack or be attacked. And it just puts, I don't want to say puts out a vibe, you know what I mean? I don't understand that. I don't understand the need to always have a weapon on you. If you have one in your house to protect yourself, I get that. But going out into public and strapping like that is unbelievably frightening, and it is disgraceful and disgusting. So,
yeah, Ring's not wrong.
Yeah.
I also really liked what Amber said earlier. That was she made an excellent point about psychological testing.
Yeah. Her and I were talking about that, and there was a story. I didn't get the clip of it in time, but there was a story of this one officer. I don't even know where it was, but he had 71 counts of police brutality filed against him, and was found negligent in 68 of those. Why is he still a police officer? When he was found wrong, when he was found in the wrong on the very first one, that should have been game over.
Right.
You should be done as a cop now.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you still have a badge after 71 complaints have been filed against you?
Yeah, I learned something about this because I've spent the last week just absorbing content. Because, I was like, it just keeps happening. It keeps happening. And I was losing my mind. And someone said that what some people will do is if they get enough complaints against them to where, as a cop, to where they're let go from a force in one city or state, they'll move to another city or state and become a cop there. And so clearly they're not doing proper background checks, or they just don't care. There's also very much a fraternal culture.
Well, part of the problem is, and I'm sure, Granny can back me up on this, they don't get charged with a crime. It is all in-house charges.
Yeah.
That doesn't carry over to the court, so it doesn't actually show up in their record unless somebody exposes it.
It depends. Yeah, it can be handled either as an internal affairs issue, or it can go to the DA for charges.
Yeah.
And internal affairs is supposed to send the file to the DA if they think it's warranted, and then the DA has to determine it. And the DA can bring charges on their own, but the DA is dependent on the police to testify in all of their cases. and they need a good relationship with the police. And so they're not.
Badger, are you upset or did you fall asleep with your mouth next to your microphone, love?
No, I don't think it's my microphone. I think we're picking up a bit of feedback.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I'm sorry.
Or Jeff is heavily breathing into my ear.
Yeah, someone was, and I got a flashback to being young in the 80s, being Ringo. Yeah, please don't. Oh, God. Okay.
That was creepy.
Moving on.
That's
Sorry.
Moving on, as Mathis would say.
Is I know it can't pick me up like at all if I move just over here.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I apologize for derailing there for a second, but that was bugging the shit out of me. So what are we?
I'm kind of catching up with the conversation at the moment, so sorry, I had to step out for a few minutes, so I hope you understand.
Oh, of course.
Me too. Totally cool, honey.
Yeah.
I appreciate what you were working on.
Yeah, okay, yeah. No, I'm not willing. Obviously, it was a private conversation. I'm not willing to obviously discuss on stream. So,
we were talking. One of the biggest issues is the police just being way too overarmed, and we've armed the police like the military, and now swatting has become a thing in this country. Where people will call and make an accusation against someone that would require a SWAT response, and just laughing at the SWAT response.
It's not just. It's under training.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
I'm trying to not come on this and do a big, massive anti-F the police kind of rant, or even get into my own personal politics of this. Because I do kind of feel my own personal views is that the police do kind of form an armed wing of the state, but I don't want to get too much into that. But there is a massive issue with accountability when it comes to the police, and it's not an exclusively a US problem. I'll say the United States has got a massive problem with things like racism and that, which has become very apparent over the last few days. But I mean, even if I look back to certain things in the United Kingdom, for example, a few years ago, there was a death of a guy called Ian Tomlinson in the UK who was killed by the police on a demonstration. And he wasn't part of the demonstration. He was just happened to be crossing the roads. When a demonstration was going on and the police hit him and he died as a result of that. And there was clearly a kind of cover up initially with the autopsy or whatever. But still no one was ever held accountable for that. And there are some cases I can bring up in the UK. There was an anti-fascist activist in the 70s called Blair Peach who was quite clearly murdered in police custody. The family, friends, are still trying to get justice for that now. That was 40 years ago. And probably the most famous case in the UK of this isn't so much a case of police abuse, of more a case of the police getting it wrong, and rather than admit to their mistakes, paint the other side with the bad brush or whatever, was the Hillsborough football stadium disaster. And Badger, as a fellow Brit, might know a bit more what I'm talking about here. But
is that the one with the fire?
No. No, it's not.
No, not the one with the.
But in 1989,
Yeah,
this
Noga's
is
absolutely.
this is the semi-final of the FA Cup. This is soccer for Americans, or football as Brits call it. But there was a stadium disaster in which 96 people died. And a lot of it, when you got to the core root of it, this was that the police made a massive, South Yorkshire police made a massive mistake in the way that whole game was policed. And what happened was at the time there were these like fences at the front of football ground to stop people going onto the ground, and the police funneled like thousands and thousands of fans into this one pen, which would literally everyone up against the fence was literally crushed to death.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Oh,
and 96 people died as a result of that. And it was all down to absolute negligence on the part of South Yorkshire police. And it is only literally like a year and a half ago that, after like more than 20 years of campaigning, that this was brought to court and found that they were liable, that the police were liable for this.
Wow.
And this isn't even a case of like blatant racism or blatant abuse. This is just a case of a fucking sorry, don't want to swear, but a mistake on the part of a police force.
That ship sailed long ago.
Yeah, don't worry about it. Amanda and I are here.
Okay.
The swearing has happened.
I'm sorry. I was just trying not to swear on Granny Street, but and trying to
You're very
polite.
considerate.
Like I said before, I'm fine with other people swearing. I just don't choose to do it myself.
Yeah, I get it. I'm trying to be as polite as I possibly can be here, but yes, 96 people died. It took more than 20 plus years to get justice for that. There are other things in Britain now that we're still people are still trying to get justice for. The actions of the police during the 1984-1985 miners' strike at Orgreave, when they clearly were the ones who started the trouble. Clearly. And I've been on demonstrations. I'll just say this, and then I'll shut up. Okay. I have been on demonstrations. I've never been arrested, but I was punched by a copper on a demo before. And I will say this, that it got a bit heated, and I was part of what I was hoping was a peaceful protest, and it got very, very heated. And somehow I ended up at the front of this demonstration, and I got a right hook from a copper that sent me to the ground. Okay, and I was about to get up and go for this guy, and then a couple of other people on the demo pulled me back from like doing something that was going to get me arrested. And I don't know. I think police on demonstrations, I want to give them as benefit of doubt as much as possible. I've been on the side of the demonstrators. It can be a heated situation. I get that. We're all human beings. And even as a police officer, you can get heated. I get it. But the absolute, and I think this is a problem globally, the absolute lack of accountability when the police step out of line is a global problem. Not even. No, the race issues, it's a massive problem in the US. But
and that's the thread I really wanted us to pick at from what Jeff was saying.
I'll shut
no,
up.
I'm not saying you have to shut up. I'm just saying, like, no, that's exactly you're right. That is exactly the problem we have here. Is cops seldom get charged when they kill someone, and when they do get charged, they almost always get off, and they get way lesser charges. It's nutty. Like normally, sugar. I'm missing the word. The person who does the charging, DA. When a Yeah, thank you. When a district attorney is doing charges against a normal person, a regular, civilian, what they do is they stack the charges, and they put as many things in there as they can, because they know that half or 2/3 of them will get thrown out in court. That's just kind of how the game is played. With police, it's more often just like recent, like the no, not fair, the asshat that murdered George Floyd. He's being charged with 3rd-degree murder, which is basically, oops, I didn't mean to kill anyone, but I did. That's
It's
not.
up to 2nd degree now. But
So, thank you.
Right. Actually, I have something to add. I'm looking for. I can't find it. But when they upped it to 2nd degree, and they arrested the other ones, and Coulter, who is taught, and I can't find the actual tweet, but her response was, oh, well, let's just blame him for, and she listed all this other stuff, like the Lindbergh baby or some, I don't even remember what it was, but she made it seem like, it was completely ridiculous to charge him at all, let alone to up it to 2nd degree. That was absolute fucking murder, straight up murder.
Yeah, and we have it on video.
Yeah, and it's people on the other side to spout this kind of rhetoric that, oh, you're making too big of a deal of it, and he shouldn't be charged this way. That is dangerous, and that is the problem, because it's people like her that have a voice, that are able to, whisper in the president's ear and say, no, the cops are on the right side here, and they don't deserve to be, punished for what they did. That is the fucking problem, Jeff. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Anyway, because I just want to make. I don't know what there is in the United States in terms of a body that is able to hold police officers to account.
Internal affairs.
Other than internal affairs within police departments.
Right.
We have something
After
in
that
the
is
UK.
the judicial system.
We have something in the UK called the Independent Police Complaints Commission, and there's all kind of things wrong with it, but at least the principle of it is, the basic principle of what it is supposed to do is a good idea. And I don't know that there's some, that I genuinely think there needs to be an independent body, a completely independent body that monitors things with police abuses or alleged abuses. Now, I have an issue with, like I said, the body we got in the UK, because so many people on this supposedly independent complaints commission are former police officers, and you kind of know where they're going to side. And now, not to say that ex-police officers don't have a valid opinion to put into anything like this. I think they do. But I think there needs to be... This is the problem I have, what I've seen with police forces over the world. Accountability is a massive issue when it comes to police forces. That is not just a US thing or a British thing or whatever. That's a global thing.
Yeah.
Is accountability.
It's who watches the watch.
Massive. That is the major issue with police forces across the world.
Going back to something that Julie said, they stack those charges for 2 reasons. 1, because they know it's going to add more time, and 2, because they know that most people don't have the money to hire someone who's going to fight all of those charges. So even if they can on their own get a lot of them thrown out, they're not going to get them all thrown out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That's important.
Well, a big part of the reason why charges are stacked against non-police officers is the whole game of plea bargaining.
Yeah.
And plea bargaining has also led to a lot of people pleading guilty to things that they never did, because the police will charge you with a very serious crime and tell you, if you will agree to plead guilty to a lesser crime, they won't charge you with the more serious crime. And so now you are left with the prospect of, do I go to court and try to prove myself, try to prove you can't prove yourself innocent. Try to get them to prove you guilty, and if I lose, I could end up going to jail on this much more serious crime. Or do I plead guilty to this lesser offense that, I never committed either one of them, but at least, with the lesser offense, I'm not taking as big a risk.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to answer Nerdy's question, yes, we do have legal aid in the United States. You can get what people like me like to refer to as a public pretender, because they don't really represent you. They just want to get a paycheck. And a lot of people get screwed over when they go to legal aid. It's just a fact.
Well, in the criminal courts, you don't go to legal aid. When you go in for your arraignment, the judge will appoint you an attorney.
Right.
And the attorney will be a public defender, and you call them public pretender. But legal aid and public defender's office are actually two separate things.
Yeah.
Because legal aid is someplace you go to when you want legal help and you can't afford it, whereas the public defender is paid by the state to represent people who are indigent.
And they're usually overworked, and
Yep.
Not a huge impetus for them to always have their best day.
No.
Would be a kind way to put it.
Part of the problem is the class system in this country. Because, take, for example, look at Jeffrey Epstein, who actually conspired with the government to keep his sentence minimum the first time he went to jail. Okay? Because he could afford it. And the second time he went to jail, he sat there, he offered $500 million in order to get bond. Okay? Where a lot of people on the lower end of the spectrum can't even afford, a $10,000 bond, which would just be $1,000, or bail, the bond would be $1,000.
Can't afford bail for smoking pot, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, no. I was just throwing in a random comment there, Amanda. Go on.
No, it's just, it is, and I really honestly think it's designed that way, because if you can afford a lawyer,
it is.
And you can afford a good lawyer, you can get away with fucking anything. Not to keep going back to Epstein, but the first time around, he was only charged with soliciting prostitution when he had sexually assaulted hundreds of underage girls. Because of the lawyer he had and his connection to the government, he was able to get away with this. Where somebody goes in that gets caught with a couple ounces of weed in a state like mine, where it's still illegal, and they end up in jail for 6 fucking months because they get a public defender that spends literally 5 minutes looking at their file before they walk into court.
Or if in my state, which is near yours, or in my state where weed is still illegal, and if you have over an ounce, that's not just possession, it's felony possession and it's intent to sell. And if you were anywhere near a public building or a school, they can add trafficking onto that. So you can end up in prison for a long time for having an ounce of marijuana.
Well, one of the biggest problems is the whole bail system. If you can't afford bail, then you stay in jail until your trial. And then if you are found not guilty, well, gee, that's too bad. And if, even if you're found guilty, you may end up having a fine, but you ended up serving all of this jail time, whereas a person who can afford bail doesn't have to serve all this jail time. So we really have de facto debtor's prison here.
Yeah.
I'll say, I was going to jump in, especially what Amanda said. And people who know me probably will know my politics is very class-based. Not saying it's right or wrong. However, it does, yeah. And I was actually going to jump in and saying, someone like Epstein or whatever could get whatever, and someone who's caught smoking a joint or whatever can go to jail for however long is ridiculous. And I'm trying not to get too political on this stream, but this is kind of just my only personal views. the first ever police force in the world was in England. They were called the Bow Street Runners, who policed London. They were kind of a private thing that eventually morphed into what is now called the Metropolitan Police in London. And there was, and this is the argument I would make, that back in the day, we're in the kind of whole Enlightenment era with the ideas of even a standing army, which was covered in on the which I think was covered on the Second Amendment discussion you guys were having earlier, or let alone a standing police force, was what's the word I'm looking for? And it was abhorrent to people, to the kind of ruling liberal, somewhat liberal elites that were at the time of the Enlightenment era. The idea of a standing army or a standing police force. However, here's kind of what happened, and especially what happened within England in the 19th century. That you had mass protests. You had things like what was called the Peterloo Massacre, which is a working class demonstration where the army was sent in literally to carve, and the cavalry literally cut people down. That was one result of things like that. But also there's this weird situation that the government also realized they couldn't quite rely on the army in certain situations to put these demonstrations down, because sometimes, you know, a lot of soldiers were working class people too, and had sympathy, and sometimes they found themselves in a situation where it was
back.
Yeah, you know, they refused to follow orders or whatever. Police forces in a weird way, and this is and I can't go into enough detail to really give this argument justice, and I'm accepting it on the stream because I'd need to do a couple of hours to even really do this argument justice. But when the things like the Bow Street Runners were created and police forces were, it weirdly ended up as a kind of arm of the state that was willing to put down suppression, but in a way that was acceptable to ruling elites. And I still think there's a big element of that exists to this day. Now, I totally accept that you do need a body that is going to, you know, police crime and so on. There needs to be some sort of a police force.
Yeah, and I would say that even without a longer explanation, we can understand the notion of soldiers are trained to fight a foreign enemy, not to kill their own people, and so the police force is there to deal with unruly citizens, or in our case right now, ruly citizens.
And
you absolutely can. I just wanted to throw that out there.
I wanted to absolutely stress on that. What I just said is all of that is my own personal opinion. I'm not saying take that as fact or whatever. That is my own personal opinion and the conclusions I have come to. But don't take that as fact. You are free to disagree with me. I actually would appreciate some bit of pushback on that. If you've got a good argument against that. However, what it came back to was something I said earlier about lack of accountability with police forces, and which I think is a global problem. Mm-hmm. And again, I might be bringing my own personal politics into this, and I apologize for that.
Now, but let me throw this in there. Julie, you're half right. When anyone in the U.S. military swears their oath to whatever branch of the service they're going into, they swear an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
And domestic. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, forgot about that. My
But the
bad.
president wanting to use the military against U.S. citizens is, even the military is saying, this was wrong. We don't want to do this.
Yeah. Part of the problem is, though, you have a lot of people that join the military for the sole purpose of being trained in how to harm people. And people can tell me I'm, that's just my opinion or whatever. But there have been many, many articles written about white supremacists and people from the Nation of Islam and 5%ers purposely joining the military to get that kind of training. Then they get out of the military and decide, well, I'm not going to go back to the street gang. I'm going to be a cop. It's got better benefits. So now we have these people with this training out there causing the issues that we see now.
Yeah, well, you do have to think about in the realm of psychology, the kind of personality types that are drawn to that profession. And this is going to be incredibly reductionist. So feel free to hate on what I'm about to say in the chat. I understand because it's going to be super reductionist. But it can sort of be boiled down to two really basic stereotypes. And so bad right there. But there are people who become police officers because they genuinely want to protect the places where they live. And
the same with the military.
Yeah,
there are
same with military, absolutely. And then there's and then there's the folks who were bullies in high school and they still want to be bullies once they grow up. Just to boil it down, and I said it was reductionist to start out with. I realized that. But
yeah, I'm not trying to make a blanket statement about all of them being bad, because that's a fallacy. There are,
right,
like Jeff said, we're all human, and I think people need to start focusing on that more. Stop thinking about ethnicity all the time. Think of people as people. It's really not that hard, but you have people out there who don't care. Their whole agenda is, I'm going to fight for me and mine, and everybody else needs to go away.
Yeah.
And I don't know how we solve that. I've been struggling with that for 30 years. I don't know how to solve that problem. I wish I did.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
What Julie said really quick.
Yes, please.
I heard part of it when I came back. Sorry, my mom needed help with something. And I don't, it's the same thing. I don't want to say that all police officers are like that, but there's a tendency in positions of power, of authority, that people who seek out power and because it makes them feel better and will, use it against other people. That happens a lot, and especially in America. I personally, many of the cops I've met, some have been wonderful and helpful, but there are a lot that you can tell that just don't give a damn about. They see themselves, because they're in that position of authority and they have that power, that they can treat the people around them any way that they please. And unfortunately, that seems to happen more and more in this country, and it's a big reason why this shit keeps happening. So
yeah.
Sorry, Jeff.
Okay. This could be a little longer than I anticipated, just based off what Manta just said a minute ago. Now, first of all, I think one thing to take away from this stream is not all police officers are bad. I think we can all agree on that statement. We can all agree on that initial statement. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Not all coppers are bad. And I can, so I'll get a little bit of an example that is, I've made clear on maybe some other streams and whatever, that I have been an activist a bit of my lifetime or whatever. And a few years ago in Britain, we had this big problem called the English Defence League, who were a far right group or whatever. And who went around stirring up trouble. Like their main target was Muslims, and listen, I got my issues with Islam as a religion, but at the same time, no, I'm not going to fucking, we can't support hate groups against these people at the same time. However, what happened with this was we'd come to the policing of it, because when they became a problem, there was a unit that was assigned to this group. And over the course of time, they kind of developed relationships with the leaders and the people in the English Defence League, so that when it came to policing demonstrations they were on, this particular unit were not unbiased, because they had formed relationships, and even some of them, I would say, even had got sympathetic. I would say in instances where local police officers were involved, the situation was very different. So that was just one example to throw out the way there.
No, that's a very human thing to happen.
However, I think it was leading on something I said earlier about roles in the military and the police. And again, I apologize. This may be my own personal politics coming into this again, and I apologize for that. However, when you actually look at a lot of situations where there's been situations in countries that have been, say, revolutionary or whatever, and I think the most recent example I could probably give was Egypt in 2011. That when you reach this breakdown in society, when working class people had been oppressed to the point they couldn't fucking take it anymore, and up rose, and there was this massive demonstrations and strikes across Egypt. The actual armed forces, the army deserted to the side of the revolutionaries, and the police stayed loyal to the state. That's one example, but you can look at that throughout history. Mm-hmm. That is something that's happened. And again, this is my own personal views on the role the police play. I get that, but and people are free to disagree with me, but this is kind of what happens. The police play a certain role, in my opinion, that is very beneficial to the ruling class, and that is my opinion on the whole thing. And I'll end on that, because I've got on my soapbox for too long, and other people will have their opinions on this. So
it's always been that way. That's nothing new. It's always been that way.
Yeah, and to add to what Brainbug was saying, oh, I'm sorry.
No, you go on.
I would just add priests to the list that Brainbug put up. Other authority figures or authority positions that attract predators. There's one too. Okay, Badger.
The trouble with any position, any occupation that puts you in a position of authority over other people, is that it's very inviting to abusive people and bullies.
Because absolute power corrupts.
Yep. Absolute power corrupts, absolutely.
If there aren't...
Sorry to be...
I'll explain while I'm laughing at that in a minute, all right?
Got like 4 pedants on here. We're all going to be power corrupts.
I actually said something to Owen the other day. You guys know what I'm talking about. He says,
Telltale,
yeah, and it's about power corrupts, and he corrected me on that. He's like, but it's absolute power corrupts, absolutely. I was like, yeah, you're right.
Okay, I'm sorry, Badger. We just kind of steamrolled all over.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Manta, I'll explain why I was laughing at that quote in a minute, all right? But
Badger, honey.
What was that on about? Police, bullies. Yes. The problem with it is, the element of tribalism within the let's just use police as an example. The element of tribalism comes into play if there is any accusation of malpractice. The police officers find themselves in very dangerous situations quite often, and that forms strong bonds of, you could say, brotherhood between the officers.
Yeah.
And someone who it's very difficult for someone to criticize their brother who has saved their lives numerous times in difficult situations when they discover them doing something that they shouldn't be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it does create a culture of
entirely natural impulse. Yeah, it's an entirely natural impulse to band together in times of hardship, even when you really shouldn't.
Even if you pull them aside and chew them out for it.
Yeah.
Between just the two of you. Yeah, I totally see what you're saying, and that does happen a lot.
Yeah.
It's important to understand that even good police officers who want nothing but to help the communities they're part of can feel very trapped when if they speak out against the people in their forces doing abusing people and bullying people and being racist towards people, they suddenly find themselves on the short end of the stick with nobody has their back anymore. I've read documented reports of police officers suddenly not getting backup shootings because they called their colleagues out for being shit.
Yeah,
that's despicable. That fucking they're speaking to your the whole brotherhood thing that happens when you have someone in the brotherhood that not even that will call people out, that will go to internal affairs and say, okay, this person did something wrong. Everybody in their unit will turn on them. Everyone. Jeff, sorry, go ahead.
No, Amanda, finish, please.
No, that was it. That was all I was saying.
Okay. No, I was having a laugh a minute ago. I just want to clear, I wasn't laughing at you, Amanda, but someone brought up. It's because somebody brought up the absolute power collapse. Absolutely. There's a friend of mine called Professor Alex Kalinikos, who's a descendant of Lord Acton, who coined that phrase. I guess my final words on this discussion would be this. I've got my soapbox a lot today about what the role I think the police play. However, all that being said, you do need some sort of body to keep law and order. You do need that. But my big thing, and I've probably repeated this several times against this, is accountability of those people that keep law and order. It's been my big issue. It's my big issue with the police forces. And yes, I've got my political soapbox enough today, but if I was to leave anything with anything, is there are serious issues around the world, in my opinion, that are about accountability of police departments. It's my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is going to argue with that. That's.
Sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Oh, I just said I don't think anyone's going to argue with that. Yeah, we need more accountability, and we do have internal affairs units, and they aren't respected by other police. They're considered rats and snitches and things like that. It's not, and so maybe we need a third, watchdog, or check or balance, for that. I don't know. But yeah.
Well, we've been going for an hour and 45 minutes now. We're starting to close in on 2 hours here. So we need to kind of wrap it up. So if everyone would like to just make a closing comment, then we'll just kind of shut it down. But Mama, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say to what Ricardo said about making the organization, be accountable, and that's instead of, obviously the police officers that make the mistakes should be held accountable as well. But I think going higher up and families being able to sue the entire department, I think that might make a difference. So he's right about that.
Yeah.
That was all.
Final thoughts, Ed?
So my final thoughts are this: as far as having accountability in the U.S., and I've said this for years, and I'm actually still actively trying to make this happen. Every state needs to have some kind of civilian oversight committee, somebody who is not connected to the police. And within that committee, maybe they should have a committee for every county in every state to handle, complaints about police officers. There needs to be a civilian involvement. That way, nobody has ties to these officers or anything like that. And as far as the things that are going on, not only in the U.S., but around the world right now, I want to go back to what Jeff said earlier. Be human. We are all human. Stop looking at people's skin color and where they come from and how much money they have and everything else. Be human and treat others as humans. It's not that hard.
I'm going to pause. Sorry, because I was trying to share links in the chat and I realized I wasn't modded, but
yeah, me too.
I will want to give a plug out to everybody in this room. Obviously, if you're watching Granny's channel and you right now live and you were not sub to her, sub to Julie, sub to Badger, sub to Grumpy, and please sub to Amanda. And if you can tolerate me, sub to me as well. So
that was awesome.
Badger, final thoughts?
Yeah. It's discussion about difficult topics, especially topics as difficult and emotive as this particular topic. I think it's important to keep trying to have honest discussions about them. So thank you very much for hosting it.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for coming.
That's what I got.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Thank you for a good discussion. I know that at times it kind of went in different directions.
Sorry to interrupt, but by the way, cheers, Dave, for sharing all our channel links in the live chat. Okay.
Thank you, Dave.
Yes. Thank you, Dave. And yeah, thank you, everyone, for joining me. Everyone, have a good day. Be safe, and bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Stand against hate, everybody.